Be me, Emma, 27, working in marketing coordination for a tech startup. I've got opinions on dating, lots of them. My friends Jess and Alexa and I dissect male behavior like it's a part-time job. Why didn't he text back for 3 hours? What did he mean when he said he had fun? Men are so confusing, they never just communicate directly. We've had this conversation 100 times over mimosas and avocado toast. I've been on dating apps for years. I get matches constantly. It's not bragging, it's just reality. But finding someone who's actually worth my time? That's the hard part. Guys are either way too eager, boring, or way too aloof, playing games. It's exhausting trying to decode what they want. So when my brother Jake invited me on a trip to Portugal with his friends, I figured why not? I needed content for my Instagram anyway, and Jake had been bugging me to meet his crew for months. Jake's 32, a software engineer, and genuinely one of the good ones. Stable job, his own place, funny in a dad joke kind of way. He's been single for over 2 years, which I always found weird because he's a catch. But he'd mention dating struggles here and there, and I'd give him advice. Be more mysterious. Don't text back right away. Women like a chase. Standard stuff. His friends were a mixed bag. Marcus was 30, an accountant, average height, but fit and well-dressed, with a naturally charming personality. Dev was 29, a graphic designer, tall, artistic, introverted, but funny once he warmed up. And then there was Kyle, 28, in sales. He was maybe 5 feet 7 inches, balding a bit, but he made good money and honestly seemed like he tried the hardest of all of them. We landed in Lisbon on a Thursday afternoon. The energy was immediate. Cobblestone streets, pastel buildings, that European ease in the air. The guys were pumped. On the ride from the airport, Kyle joked about finally meeting Portuguese women and how he'd heard European women were more direct than American ones. I teased them. You guys need a game plan or something? Marcus grinned. Nah, we're just going to be ourselves. Kyle muttered, yeah, that's been working great so far. I laughed, but he didn't. Our first stop was a beach club in Cascais, music thumping, drinks flowing, beautiful people everywhere. Within 30 minutes of arriving, I got approached twice. One guy offered to buy me a drink. Another asked me to dance. Both were decent looking, respectful. I politely declined both. Not really my type, and I wasn't in the mood. I noticed the guys trying to approach groups of women near the bar. Marcus talked to some British girls, smiling, leaning in, asking questions. They were polite, but closed off, giving one-word answers before turning back to each other. Dev tried chatting with a solo woman by the bar. The conversation seemed to go okay for 5 minutes. Then she said, "Nice meeting you," and walked away, mid-conversation. Kyle didn't even attempt anything. He just stood there with his drink, watching. Jake managed to dance with a girl for one song. Afterward, he asked for her Instagram. She gave it to him, smiled, and that was that. He messaged her that night with something light-hearted. She never responded. At dinner that evening in the Alfama district, outdoor seating, wine, twinkling lights overhead, the guys debriefed. Marcus looked genuinely confused. I don't get it. I thought the conversation was good. Dev shook his head. She literally just walked away while I was mid-sentence. Kyle stayed quiet, swirling his wine. I jumped in, trying to help. Maybe you guys are coming on too strong? Women like a little mystery. You have to make them chase a bit. Jake gave me a look, but didn't say anything. I pivoted to my own frustrations. Trust me, dating sucks for everyone. I've got guys who breadcrumb me, guys who ghost after 3 dates, guys who say they want something serious and then disappear. Marcus raised an eyebrow. But you've still got, 10 active matches right now? I shrugged. Quality over quantity. He didn't respond, just took another sip of wine. Later that night, back at the Airbnb, We were all sprawled out, scrolling on our phones. I was swiping through Hinge, getting match after match. I showed the guys a message some dude sent me. "Hey, beautiful, you look like you could ruin my life." "Wink face," they laughed. Dev said, "That's so cringe." Then Kyle turned his phone toward me. Check this out. His Hinge was open. 3 active conversations. One was clearly a bot asking him to follow her on Instagram. One hadn't responded in 4 days. The third had replied, "Ha," to his question and nothing else. "I've been on here for 6 months, he said flatly. I blinked. "Seriously?" He nodded. I looked at his profile. The photos were fine. Nothing amazing, but nothing bad either. His bio was normal. Love hiking, trying new restaurants, and pretending I'm good at golf. Looking for someone who laughs at bad jokes. "Maybe you need better photos," I suggested, handing his phone back. He just looked at me, then put his phone away. I told myself it was probably just his approach or something. The night ended, and I fell asleep feeling confident about the trip. It was going to be fun. We headed south to Lagos the next day, a beach town with ridiculous cliffs and turquoise water. The vibe was more relaxed, more party-oriented. We booked a boat party for the afternoon. DJ, unlimited drinks, swimming stops. It was exactly the kind of thing that should have been fun and easy. I got asked to dance within 20 minutes by a German guy with a man bun. We chatted for a bit. He was traveling solo, into photography, kind of pretentious but harmless. An Australian group nearby invited me to join them for a photo op by the edge of the boat. I was having a blast. The guys? Invisible. Marcus tried talking to a group of American girls sunbathing on the deck. They were polite. "Oh, cool." "Yeah, totally." But their body language was closed. They didn't ask him anything back. After a few minutes, he gave up and walked away. Dev attempted to join a conversation near the bar. A couple of women were talking about travel plans, and he chimed in with a story about backpacking through Southeast Asia. One of them smiled politely and then turned her back to him, continuing the conversation as if he wasn't there. Kyle didn't even try. He just drank and swam alone. At one point, a woman approached me and asked, "Is your friend Jake single?" I perked up. "Yeah." "He's great. You should talk to him." I introduced them. She was friendly. Asked him what he did for work. He said, "Software engineer." She said, "Cool." And after 10 minutes of polite small talk, she excused herself and went back to her friends. Jake's face fell. I thought maybe she was just shy, or not in the right headspace. It happens. The next day, we took a group surf lesson. The instructor was tall, tattooed, stupidly attractive in that effortless surfer way. He flirted with me casually, nothing overt, just eye contact and teasing comments. I was flattered, but not interested. I noticed he didn't really talk to the guys beyond basic instruction. Kyle tried joking around with 2 women in the lesson, something about how he was definitely going to wipe out first. They giggled politely, then moved to a different spot on the beach. Afterward, I pulled Kyle aside. "You're being a little try-hard. Just be natural." He looked at me like I'd just told him the sky was green. That evening, we hit a rooftop bar for sunset. The view was insane. Golden light spilling over terracotta roofs, cocktails in hand. I was taking photos for Instagram when a local guy approached me. Spoke decent English with a Portuguese accent. Asked if he could buy me a drink. I wasn't interested, so I politely declined. He smiled, said no problem, and walked away. 10 minutes later, Marcus approached a woman nearby with the exact same energy. Polite, offering a drink, respectful. She didn't even look at him, just said, "I'm good," without turning her head. Marcus came back to our table, visibly frustrated. What the hell did I do different than that guy who just talked to Emma? Jake, already a few drinks deep, said, "You're not 6 feet 2 inches with a jawline, bro." I jumped in. "That's not fair. Women aren't that shallow." Dev, who'd been quiet most of the night, leaned forward. "Then explain it." Jake took a long sip of his drink. "You want the honest answer? Watch this." He stood up, walked over to a different woman at the bar, similar age to the one who'd approached me earlier, similar look. Used the exact same opener the Portuguese guy had used on me, even mimicked the casual lean. She glanced at him, said, "No thanks," without smiling, and turned away before he'd finished his sentence. Jake came back and sat down. "Same words, same approach, different result." Dev muttered, "We could have told you that would happen." I felt something uncomfortable twist in my stomach, but pushed it away. I opened my mouth and couldn't. I had nothing. So I pivoted. "Dating is hard for everyone." Marcus snorted. "Sure." Later that night, back at the Airbnb, Kyle showed me another app conversation. He'd sent a thoughtful opener referencing something in the woman's bio. Asked her about a book she mentioned. She replied, "LOL." He followed up with another question. She unmatched. I stared at the screen. Maybe she's just busy, or like her ex texted her, or... Marcus cut me off. Or she just didn't think I was hot enough. It's that simple. I felt uncomfortable. I changed the subject and went to bed. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. The patterns were hard to ignore. The guys were being polite, straightforward, making an effort. And they were getting nothing. Meanwhile, I was turning down attention I didn't even ask for. I told myself it wasn't that simple. There had to be more to it. We flew back the following week. I slipped back into routine. Work, brunches with Jess and Alexa, scrolling apps before bed. But the trip kept replaying in my head. That Sunday, Jess, Alexa, and I met for brunch at our usual spot. Mimosas, overpriced eggs, the whole deal. Jess was spiraling because a guy she'd been seeing took 3 hours to reply to her text. "What does that mean?" she asked, staring at her phone like it held the secrets of the universe. Alexa jumped in. "Men play so many games. They never just say what they want." I almost said, "I don't think they do," but I stopped myself. It felt wrong, like I'd be betraying something. Then Alexa mentioned she'd gone on a date earlier that week with a guy who told her on the second date that he was looking for a relationship. "It was way too intense," she said. I ghosted him. I felt a weird pang in my chest, but didn't say anything. A few days later, I invited Jake to a happy hour with some co-workers. I had 2 single friends there, Rachel and Brianna, and I'd hyped Jake up to them beforehand. He's smart, stable, funny. You guys would love him. Jake showed up looking good. Clean cut, jeans and a button down, smelling like actual cologne. He was engaged, asked them questions, shared stories, laughed at their jokes. I thought it went well. Later, Rachel pulled me aside. "He's nice, but I don't know. No spark." "What does that even mean?" I asked. She shrugged. "Like, he's just not exciting, you know?" Brianna was more blunt when I asked her. "He's not really my type. I usually go for taller guys." Jake is 5 feet 10 inches. I felt weirdly defensive, but also... I understood. I'd done the exact same thing a dozen times. A few days later, I went to Jake's apartment. He looked tired. We sat on his couch, and he opened up in a way he never had before. I've been trying for 2 years," he said quietly. "I'm polite. I'm clean. I have a good job. I'm not a creep. I ask women questions. I plan dates. I pay. I follow up. And it's just... nothing. They ghost. They flake. They friend-zone me. I'm exhausted." I wanted to help. "Maybe you're being too nice? Women like confidence." He looked at me, frustrated. "I am confident. I just don't treat women like shit. Apparently, that's the problem." I felt defensive. "That's not true. Women don't..." He pulled out his phone, opened Hinge. 3 matches in 6 months. All 3 had ghosted after a few messages. One of the profiles looked familiar. I squinted. Wait, is that Emily? From my yoga class? He nodded. I knew her. She was constantly complaining about how guys don't want anything serious. My brain short-circuited. That night, I couldn't sleep. I opened my own apps. 47 active matches. I hadn't responded to most of them. I scrolled through, looking at profiles I'd swiped left on earlier that week. One guy. Good photos, stable job, funny bio. 5 feet 9 inches, left. Another, 5 feet 8 inches, teacher, loves dogs. Left. Another, not the most photogenic, but his bio seemed genuine and sweet. Left. I stared at my screen, feeling something uncomfortable settle in my chest. I didn't want to name it. I'd been avoiding Jake's texts for a few days. Not on purpose. I just didn't know what to say. Then he asked me to come over on Saturday. Said he wanted to talk. I showed up expecting, I don't know, an apology? A venting session? Instead, Jake and Kyle were both there, sitting in the living room. Kyle looked like he'd been waiting for this. Sit down, Jake said. Not unkindly, but firm. I sat. Kyle didn't waste time. Emma, you keep saying men are complicated, so explain to me, what do men actually want? I blinked, caught off guard. I don't know. It depends on the guy. Nope, Kyle interrupted. Simple answer. Most men want respect, physical affection, sex, and someone who's pleasant to be around. That's it. 4 things. Now, what do women want? I started listing them off without thinking. Emotional intelligence, good communication, financial stability, ambition, humor, confidence but not arrogance. Someone who plans dates but isn't too eager. Tall. I mean physically compatible, shared values, someone who's good with kids if that's a thing, adventure but also stability. Jake cut me off. You just listed 15 things. We listed 4. I opened my mouth to argue. Because relationships are complex. Kyle leaned forward, his voice sharper now. No. Women make them complex. Men are simple. You just don't like the simple answer. I felt heat rising in my face. That's not fair. Jake pulled his laptop onto the coffee table and opened a browser. Let me show you something. He pulled up a series of articles, studies, data charts. Men get a 1 to 2% match rate on dating apps. Women get 50% or higher. Men send 10 times more messages and get 10 times fewer replies. 14% of men are 6 feet or taller. 80% of women filter for it. I tried to cut in. Those are just stats. Individual experiences vary. Kyle wasn't having it. Do they? How many guys under 5 feet 9 inches have you dated? I froze. That's not... I don't filter by height. I just... You don't need to filter, Jake said, his voice softer now. You swipe left instinctively. How many guys who make less than you? Kyle pulled out his phone. Let me show you something. He opened his messages and scrolled. This is Sarah. We talked for 3 weeks. She said she loved that I was genuine and sweet. Then she met me in person. He showed me the last message. Sorry, I just didn't feel the chemistry. You're great, though. I asked her to be honest. You know what she said off the record? Kyle's jaw tightened. You're shorter than I expected. He looked at me. I'm the same height as Tom Cruise, but I'm not famous or rich, so I'm just... short. I had no response. I felt cornered, exposed. Jake's tone shifted, gentler now. Remember Tom, the guy from your gym? I frowned. What about him? You called him confusing because he texted you every day and you thought it was weird. It was weird, I said defensively. It was too much. He was being direct, Jake said. He liked you. He was straightforward about it. You called it confusing because you didn't like him back, but you didn't want to admit you were judging him for something shallow. My face flushed. Jake continued, And remember Brian? You said he was playing games because he didn't text you back for 2 days. I remembered Brian. I'd been really into him. He wasn't playing games, Em. He just wasn't that into you. Simple, Kyle added. Men aren't complicated, Emma. You just don't like when we're direct and it's not what you want to hear. And you don't like when we're not direct because it means we're not interested. We can't win. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tear their logic apart. But I couldn't. Then Jake pulled up something else on his laptop. Old dating app profiles. Guys I'd swiped left on years ago. Screenshots he'd saved when I was swiping on his phone once as a joke. He clicked through them. These guys are still out here. Still single. Still trying. One profile. Just looking for something real? Same photos from 2 years ago? Another. Tired of games? Just want honesty. Jake looked at me. You swiped left on them in 3 seconds. I felt nauseous. They were being straightforward, Jake said quietly. They told you exactly what they wanted, and you dismissed them because they weren't tall enough, or hot enough, or exciting enough. Men aren't complicated. You just don't want to hear the truth when it's inconvenient. I sat there, speechless. My chest felt tight. I wanted to defend myself, to rationalize, to explain that I wasn't doing anything wrong, that I was allowed to have preferences, but I couldn't find the words. Kyle stood up. I'm done pretending this is a mystery. It's not. He left the room. Jake looked at me, and for the first time, I saw how tired he was. How much it had all worn him down. I'm not saying you're a bad person, Em, he said, but stop saying men are complicated when we're really not. I nodded, numb. I left shortly after, drove home in silence, sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes. I spent the next few days in a fog. I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation, replaying Jake's words, Kyle's frustration, the data on the screen. I opened my journal one night and tried to write it out. Maybe they have a point, but it's not like I'm doing anything wrong. I'm allowed to have preferences. Everyone has preferences. It's not my fault men have it harder. That's just biology? Society? I didn't create the system. I stared at the words. They felt hollow. The next Sunday, I met Jess and Alexa for brunch again. I tried to bring it up carefully. Do you guys think maybe men aren't actually that complicated? I asked. Like, maybe they're pretty straightforward and we just... Jess cut me off. Girl, no. Men are absolutely complicated. They say one thing and mean another all the time. I hesitated. But what if we're the ones saying one thing and meaning another? Like when we say we want honesty, but then we call a guy clingy when he's direct about liking us? Alexa looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Are you okay? You sound like you're internalizing misogyny or something. I laughed it off and changed the subject, but inside, I felt it. The distance. I couldn't talk to them about this. They wouldn't get it. A few days later, I met Jake for coffee. I apologized for being dismissive before. I get it now, I said quietly. Kind of. I don't know what to do with it, but I get it. Jake nodded. You don't have to do anything with it. Just stop saying men are complicated when we're really not. I nodded, then softer. It's just hard because if I admit that, then I have to admit I'm part of the problem. And I don't want to be. Jake looked at me with something like sympathy. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? That night, I was back on my apps, swiping absent-mindedly. A profile came up. Dave, 29. Teacher. Loves hiking, cooking, and bad puns. Looking for something real. 5 feet, 8 inches. His photos were decent. His smile was genuine. His bio was straightforward. No games, no mystery. I hovered over his profile. I thought about Jake, about Kyle, about the guys still trying, still putting themselves out there, still getting nothing. I swiped left, then I stared at my phone, guilt twisting in my stomach. I almost reopened the app to find him again. I didn't. I locked my phone and sat there in the silence, the discomfort settling over me like a weight I couldn't shake. I knew. I finally knew. Maybe I misunderstood men my whole life.